you're not scared to fail, if you're willing to fail quickly, but learn from it, you really can level up. And again, failures is not something that I see as like as a negative thing. I see it as learning experiences.
The future of dentistry belongs to the innovators. Welcome to Innovation in Dentistry. I'm your host, Sean Zayas, and I believe that the future of dentistry is going to be unbelievably great over the next decade and 2 decades. But the question isn't that. The question is, are you going to be part of what makes dentistry great? Okay, so I could not be more excited today to be with Dr. Glenn Vo of the Nifty Thrifty Dentist. I said that wrong. Nifty Thrifty Dentist.
No, you did awesome there, and I will tell you what. I mean, look, I'm excited about this too. I was worried about not being able to speak because I've been wanting to get on this podcast. I was so excited, and here I am. And Sean, thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Hey, you bet, Glenn. So, innovation in dentistry, it can mean so many different things. Are we talking about technological innovations? Are we talking about clinical innovations? And at the heart of it, before any of that happens, there's some crazy person that says, why not me? Like, why can't I be the one that pioneers positive change? And Glenn, I started this podcast because I know the future of dentistry is going to be great. But my question isn't, is it going to be great? It's that, is the listener that's hearing this, are they going to be part of what makes it great? Or are they just going to stay on the sideline and watch as trailblazers like you continue to create innovation? So I'm curious, we're going to get into lots of different topics, but what even got you into dentistry in the first place?
Well, I love that question. And there's so many ways I can answer that. But, I'm not going to give you the story where I was like a little kid and I had an experience at the dental office. And I knew I always wanted to be a dentist. If you want that story, you got to bring my wife on because that's her story. Like she's always wanted to be a dentist ever since she was a little kid. But that's not me, right? That's not me. Really, what got me into dentistry was I graduated college. I was, I spent like 6 months in Belize working at my friend's dive shop and just having a good time. And then after that, I decided, well, I got to be an adult here. And well, what's something good to do? And I thought, well, maybe a hospital administrator. It sounds like a good, good job. So I was like, okay, well, let me pick a place that I've always wanted to go to. And that was Maine. Okay. So I went and I did a master's program up in Maine, like the furthest place away from Texas. And I was up there, and I remember during my winter break, my sister, who's a dentist, she was like, hey, I need an assistant. My assistant's out. She's on vacation. Can you come down and help me out? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to hang out with my big sister, make a couple of bucks. Why not? So took the bus down from Maine all the way down to Virginia. And then I was helping her during winter break. And so I remember this like yesterday. I was assisting her on a filling. And she stopped what she was doing. She looked me straight in the eye and said, Glenn, do you want to be a loser for the rest of your life? And I looked at her, I'm like, what? Like I was offended. And you know what? I was assisting. And so the patient looked up too, because she wanted to know, do I want to be a loser? So everyone was looking at me. And I said, no, I don't. And then she stopped what she was doing. Then she looked at me again. She was like, the reason why I brought you down here is because I wanted you to see if this is something that you can do with your life, because you have so much more potential, Glenn. I mean, yes, hospital administration, but I feel like you have the potential to be a dentist. And that really was what pushed me into dentistry, because I was never really interested in teeth, but I was interested in the person attached to the teeth. And so she showed me, it was like, look, dentistry is more than teeth. It's about relationships. You like relationships. You like educating people. You like connecting with people. And so from there, I started getting into dentistry, learning more. And honestly, the rest is history. So I always joke around that big reason why I became a dentist was because my big sister was hazing me, making fun of me. But really, she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. She saw the potential of really doing some good in a profession that she loved, using my kind of God-given gifts of being able to connect with people. So that's really the story. It's not like I knew right away. It was something that someone pointed out to me, and then I saw a kind of like an avenue to really help other people.
So in front of the patient.
in front of the patient, literally. Like the patient, like we were working, and the patient just looked up too, like, do you? I'm waiting to hear you say if you're a loser too. You know, if you want to be a
Oh my.
loser the rest of your life. And so again, we still joke around it. My sister, I'm super close with her. In fact, I probably gonna meet her later today. But um, only a big sister, only an older sibling, only a sibling could say something so rude, right? And make it connect, right? Like that's the power of siblings.
I agree. I have a brother and sister that are 13 months older. They're twins, and their ability to, yeah, speak into your life
Oh yeah.
is unparalleled. So tell me about it. So you get into dentistry, you graduate. What was surprising in those first few years that maybe you didn't expect? Because I'm always so curious because I think
Yeah.
dentistry is something that you can never fully understand the craziness of all of it, um, because schools don't prepare you for it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah. Yeah.
try, but they don't. So all of a sudden you're thrust into it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, what did I get into? So what was surprising for you?
Well, the thing is, what's so unique about dentistry over any other health profession, any other profession, is that you are working with people that are in a very vulnerable state,
Mm,
right? They're in a very vulnerable state, number one, but also you're using your brains, what you learned in school, but you're also using your hands as well. So again, in healthcare, yeah, you're dealing with patients who are vulnerable. Maybe they're sick, maybe they're having some issues, and they have to put themselves out there. We get that in dentistry, but at the same time, we have to navigate that, but also navigate our hand skills as well,
mm,
right? You gotta do that. So it's almost like being an artist and therapist at the same time, but also a scientist. So you add all those things in there. On top of that, if you own a practice, you're a business owner as well,
mm.
right? You're a leader as well as you have your team. So for me, when I got out of school and they said, okay, here's your diploma, and you're going to work in this practice, and we're going to compensate you well. All right, now see the patients. It was pretty overwhelming in the beginning because again, we had to add all those things together. Which again, you learn how to be a dentist in school, you learn how to talk to patients in school, but then they don't teach you how to manage a team. Even if you're working for someone, you have an assistant that you're delegating tasks to and working with, right? You're working with a front office. So all those things. So that's what makes dentistry so unique. You're a healthcare provider, you're a business person at the same time, you're an artist as well that's using their hands. And so that's why it makes it it's rewarding, but also can be stressful as well.
Oh, no, I agree. My good friend Dr. Allison House, I remember when I finally connected, I'm like, wait a second. So you need to like know everything an MD knows, but at the same
Yeah.
time, you're a surgeon because you have to be clinically competent to actually perform these surgeries. And at the same exact time, since you're not part of some corporate expression, I mean, you might be, but most of them still aren't. That means you still need to understand some small business understanding.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, there's demand. Like,
Yeah.
thankfully, there's demand. But still, I was blown away. I was like, man, I think being a dentist is probably one of the most challenging enterprises to have to navigate. So tell me, when did so you graduate,
Yeah.
do you start off as an associate? Do you start off in like a corporate expression?
Yeah.
Did you eventually work your way into private practice? What was your journey like?
So I knew that when I graduated, I wanted to get as much experience as possible. So when I looked at all the opportunities, you could be an associate at a private practice and learn the business there and have like a kind of a nice cushy schedule, or you could get just thrown in the deep end and work for like a corporate office and see a whole bunch of patients. Well, I chose the latter. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to dive right in. I'm going to look at the next 2 years of my life as like an extension of school, right? It's like residency, so I'm getting paid. So the I worked at a company called South Texas Dental, and the reason why I went there, it's a corporate office, and there's a lot of other corporate offices there. But for me, and this is something that has served me well in my career in dentistry, outside of dentistry, and just relationships in general. It's all about people, right? So it's all about relationships. The one of the owners is someone I just vibed with. He had a similar background, came from nothing, worked his way up, He was flipping burgers at his parents' like burger place. They own a burger place, and then he was able to build this like amazing company. So I was like, okay, I want to learn from that guy because we have a similar kind of background, and that was the big thing. So that's the reason I went over there. But literally, I did work my butt off. I did work my butt off, and but I learned a lot. Made a lot of mistakes. I learned a lot, and that's the thing. You know, a lot of times people are like, "Well, how can I? How can I level up? What's the fastest way?" They ask me, "What's the fastest way, Glenn, to level up?" The fastest way to level up is to make a bunch of mistakes, man. It's just to jump in there. You know, like that's the fastest way that you can catch up to someone who has, let's say they have like 10 years of experience on you, right? How do you catch up to someone? They have 10 years of experience on you. The way you catch up to them is get as many reps under you as possible. And that's what I wanted to do. And so did 2 years there. And then after that, I opened my own practice. I opened, my wife's a dentist as well. And we opened our practice. It was a startup. And I opened the startup during probably one of the worst times in history. It was during the real estate crash. And for those who are, you know, old enough to remember, back in 2007, 2008, I mean, people were losing their jobs, losing their homes. I mean, it was crazy. But I didn't pay attention to that. I just opened the practice and I thought to myself, huh, this is a little bit harder than I thought. Really, that was my attitude. I was like, huh, this is a little bit harder. And as I got my reps under me, and again, like the first month was kind of rough. Like we were in the red, but after that, we made a profit right after there. It's because I just in that kind of like atmosphere, you just had to hustle, and I was used to hustling anyways from my background, right? So then it just got better and better, and so I tell a lot of people like whenever you're just thrown in the fire, and these are for the people who opened during COVID. I tell them, look, when I went through that housing crash, like there was nothing that's going to phase me after that. And I tell people when they open during COVID, you're probably never going to get anything like that. If you can survive that, you can survive anything. And so that's just kind of like the story there. So for me, it's like it's something that I've always learned is if you're willing to, if you're not scared to fail, if you're willing to fail quickly, but learn from it, you really can level up. And again, failures is not something that I see as like as a negative thing. I see it as learning experiences, right? Because the best lessons are the ones you learn on your own and where you failed.
So, Glenn, that literally is like the highest performing people that I've talked to. That is the mindset. And it blows me away because, especially coming from a dentist, failure, especially clinically, means
Yeah,
high liability, bad outcomes.
yeah,
And that just seems like a recipe for disaster. But yet, on the business front, failure simply means another chance to learn so you're able to iterate. And yet, I don't have clinical failures. I'm not a dentist, and I still can't stand the idea of endeavoring to do something and it missing the target, it falling short,
yeah,
it not panning out the way I wanted. So my biggest thing for 5 years, Glenn, I tried learning in the boardroom,
yeah,
in the land of theory. And, every single time I was about to, and it probably wasn't 5 years, but it seemed like a very long time,
yeah, yeah,
um, I kept trying to dial up the home run and dial up the thing that certainly would work, and as you know, there is no such thing. So, I robbed myself of years of actually getting to find out what the marketplace would have said to my ideas, simply because I didn't have the backbone, the cojones to ship creative work that I was working on and let the marketplace say, tweak it, or that's actually really good. But, and that's where that mindset has been one I've had to struggle so much to lay a hold of. And the fact that you got it, that's why I feel like there's some aspect of the one and only Glenveagh that's slightly an anomaly because um, being a risk averse is incredibly common in that um you know, the dental brain that's doing due diligence and being really thorough, and being very calculated, and being very meticulous. And then all of a sudden, the entrepreneur visionary is like, you know, you can have 10 years of experience, or you can have 1 year that literally has 10 years of worth
yeah,
experience
exactly.
in it because of the reps. And I feel like that's kind of what you did. Now, did you know going into dentistry that you were kind of this entrepreneur at the time. Was
Yeah.
that something that was in you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, just coming from my background, my family immigrated here in 1976 from Vietnam, and I was actually pregnant with my mom was pregnant with me, so I barely made the cut, right? Like, so she moved to the States, and I was born here, and so with growing up in a family, immigrant family of like four other siblings, five kids, right? It's first of all, it's tough enough for any family if they had that many kids, right? But much less like an immigrant family. So I was used to just making do with what I had, but also just trying to be resourceful. And so for me, because I had that background, I was always resourceful, whether it was when I was in college and I had to work two jobs, working as a dental assistant and waiting tables. I wait tables because I knew like I could do it on the weekends and I could always I can always pick up extra shifts if I needed. So I was already in that mentality of like, look, this is what I have. This is the cards I was dealt with. And what else do I have to lose, right? So that has always kind of followed me, even when I opened the practice, right? Opening the practice, people are saying, oh, I don't know about this is the best time to do it. Hey, I've always wanted to open a practice. The best time to do it is right now, right? Going through issues where I saw patients who they lost their job, and they can only do a certain amount of dental work. Being able to work with them, so for me, I've always had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit because it was born out of necessity,
Mm,
right? When you don't have much and you need to get more, you become resourceful and you become an entrepreneur, whether you like it or not. So I would never trade in my experiences growing up. And it's funny. I was talking to my wife the other day. I was like, man, I can't really put my son in the same situation because that'd be like child abuse, right? Like I can't do that. But I do want to put him in situations where he has to be resourceful and in a different way. And so for me, I just feel that those are like the hardships I had. They were lessons. They were. It was the school of hard knocks, right? Sometimes the school of hard knocks gives you the best lessons you'll never learn in actual school. So to answer your question in a long way, I just had to be an entrepreneur out of necessity.
I'm sorry. I'm just like taking this in right now because everything you're saying um, is that like vocal expression of what you've I don't know, just come to understand
Yeah,
that has allowed, again, it's been like the birthplace of why you're able to do what you've done. And that's why you can lead. That's why you can pioneer. Because you weren't stuck in some of those boxes. And like you said, some of it you attribute simply because the hardships of growing up.
yeah,
Um, I remember Gary Vee was just saying when it comes to parenting, he's like, look, if you raise your kids in the zoo, they're going to get mauled when you release them into the jungle.
yeah,
And there's this balance and this challenge of like, well, you don't want them to get mauled too early.
yeah,
How do you not cushion every blow so that they can grow? And in that same exact way, like again, I started this podcast because between the lines of what we're saying, the listeners right now know what it is inside of them where they're like, "Oh man, I could step up. I could do that. That's a dream of my heart, but the time's not right.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm not ready yet. But I can't guarantee there's going to be success." And here you are and you're like, "Well, there was no better time." I mean, it was a terrible time to start a practice, Glenn. But at the same exact time, like you just knew if I just dive in and give it my best, no matter what, if I fail forward. And that's the whole one of the concepts I love.
yeah.
If you're gonna fail, you're failing forward. So tell me, twice now you've said you just knew that you had the ability to connect with others and you knew that you were good with relationships. So is that something you took from like early on, middle school, high school, and you're like, okay, this is one of my strengths you identified early on?
Yeah. So, first of all, I love everything you just said there because, you know, look, everyone has a different experience, right? Maybe you're an immigrant from another country, so you can understand the immigrant mentality. Most people can understand being broke, right? At one time, I don't care how wealthy you are. At one time, you yourself have been broke, right? Your parents might have money, but you didn't have money. So when I say immigrant mentality, it can easily be translated to a startup mentality when
Yeah.
you're basically working out of a WeWork or out of a coffee shop because you can't afford your own office. Everyone can relate to that. Everyone can relate to the college student mentality where you're eating ramen noodles and just really scraping by. It's really just tapping into the where you came from, which is so important. Always remember where you came from. No matter how high you go, if you go back to where you came from, that will ground you. They'll keep you, having that gratitude in your heart. You'll always remember that. So as far as like what you just asked me right there, again, it goes back to just my experience, but also you have to look at what your strengths are. And for me, again, I used to wait tables all the time. I mean, I always joke around like if I had only two real jobs in my life, maybe three now, but at the longest time, two real jobs, and that was waiter and dentist, right? And I'll never give up that experience because when you're working in the restaurant industry, you have to think on your feet,
Hmm.
and you literally have to have rapport with someone you've never met within 2 minutes. Like within 2 minutes, Sean, I have to like be your buddy so that I can sell you what's on the specials and a bottle of wine, right? Like I literally have to connect with you. And so that actually kind of, because I had those reps working in the restaurant industry, like that being able to talk to people came natural. And then when I got into dentistry, where I had to build rapport with someone, like literally, Sean, I have to get in good with you because I'm about to look at your teeth and I'm about to ask you some questions that maybe you don't want to answer or you feel really, insecure about. And so it's those type of things that really set it up. And because of my personality, and there's a reason why I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time because I was comfortable there. Not everyone can work in a restaurant. They might rather work in retail or something. So I think because I had that natural ability, and then I seeked out uh, jobs that kind of focused on it, that made me more comfortable. So again, it's not just like you're born like, hey, I can just talk to anyone. You have to get, again, going back to, you have to get the reps too.
Well, in my research, one of the things I came across, and I don't know if it's still the number one thing, but I was trying to figure out why do patients leave a practice? And one of the things I found out when I was researching is that they just experience a general sense of indifference,
Yeah.
meaning they didn't sense a connection to the dentist, to the team. And it's like if you strip away everything, it's just like human to human, they didn't sense belonging. So your superpower of getting to be able to see them, build rapport, and get connection, um, not only does that have massive ROI when it comes to the patient, but I imagine working for you as a team member was
Yeah.
also amazing. So you have team members that feel seen, that feel like they belong, that feel connected, and now all of a sudden can release this culture that you've established, and now they can help the patient also feel connected and seen. I mean, I don't know if you knew that this was going to be such a superpower in dentistry, but that is 100% how you grow a dream practice is you actually care about patients
Yeah.
as people.
Well, and I'll say this: one of my most requested presentations is about team culture,
Hmm.
and I tell everyone, you don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to have like a big personality, like an Elijah Desmond or someone like that, right? You don't have to be like that. You actually can be an introvert. You can actually be someone who's really quiet and still connect with their team. And then people are like, well, how do you do that? Well, there's two things that people care about. They care about their own dreams, and they care about other people who pay attention to them. Right? Those are the two things. Like they want you to care for them and also care for their hopes and dreams. Right? That can easily be solved by, again, just literally just whenever you hire someone. This is as easy as this. Whenever you hire someone, say, hey, we do this thing in our practice. We like to do a gift exchange, and we like to be thoughtful, and we always have everyone fill out this questionnaire. And literally the questionnaire could be about their favorite things. What's your favorite drink at Starbucks? What's your favorite socks? What's your favorite fast food place? All these things. I have all new team members fill that out. Because you know what creates a connection is when, Sean, I buy you a coffee, but is it the exact drink you want? And not just some random drink that, hey, I don't like Frappuccinos, Glenn. It's thoughtful, but thank you. But what if I bought you the one you wanted? I did it
Mm.
all the time. You don't have to know everything about everyone. You just need to create a database of what they like. And then, as far as hopes and dreams, a big thing that we do in our practice is something called a vision board, right? Simple enough. We've done vision boards before. But the reason why I like to have my team do vision boards is because when I reward them with things that are on their board. You want to be in shape this year, right? Your goal is to lose those last 10 pounds. Well, you know what? Maybe instead of saying, hey, here's $50 or here's a couple $100 for doing a good job for a bonus. Hey, you know what? I got you. I actually paid for your gym membership for like the rest of the year, right? Like I want you to get that goal. Or let's say, for example, a big part of your goal is to travel more, right? So maybe as a team, I take you guys to the dental festival in New Orleans because you've never been to New Orleans before. So again, how do you connect with people? You connect with people through memories. Think of it, Sean. Think about growing up. Think about your fondest memories as a kid, right? Did it involve you getting this toy you always wanted? Did it involve you getting like some money from your folks? No, it involved probably a trip with your siblings and you guys really had some fun and you look back that with fondness. That is what people carry. And if you understand that as a practice owner, that it's all about memories, that's all about being thoughtful, you'll always have that connection with your team members, but also your patients as well. I make a note whenever I had a patient who just recently got back from Ghana, and I put that in the notes, like about to go to Ghana and whatnot. When I saw him again, I was like, hey, how did Ghana go? Oh, I didn't realize you remember that. I was like, yeah, I've been waiting for you to tell me about that. It's those things that really connect with patients.
Man, like, so it's like the way I keep thinking about this is like from the inside out. A lot of people want to know the outside hacks or tips or tricks, something simple about how you can, I don't know, connect with your patient better. And yet, it's like at the heart of it, you're just talking about caring about people, like
Yeah,
actually being interested. And yet, I don't want to slam dentistry when I say you just don't sound like a dentist, Glenn.
I got to tell you a
Um,
funny story on that. I got to tell you, and real quickly, I got to tell you a funny story. So, I'm a big fan of the Colby assessment. The Colby assessment, basically, it's a test you take, and it pretty much tells you how you approach problems, right?
mm,
So you can't fail it. It's just how you approach problems. I had the president of the associate Colby Association on my podcast, and he was like, "Glenn, I will only go on your podcast if you take the test and let me go over your results." I was like, what? On air? He was like, yes. He does it. And he looks at me, he says, man, you shouldn't be a dentist. I was like, what? It was like, I don't mean that in a bad way. I was like, your personality is more suited for this other industry. You can be a dentist and you can be successful, but your skills, it's not dentist like. Like people don't look at it that way. So, anyways, I wanted to share that with you. I thought that was so funny because the guy was like, you shouldn't be a dentist, thought it was kind of funny.
so 2008, here you are, you're with your wife, you start the practice. Um, is it a year later? Is it 5 years later? Is it 7 years later? When does Nifty Thrifty
Yeah.
get born in your mind? And what's the context surrounding it at its infancy?
Yeah. So, and this is the reason why I was so excited to get on your podcast, right? Because I think a lot of times people have like this epiphany, right? Like you've interviewed so many great dental entrepreneurs, and it was just a moment in time where they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to do this." Well, Nifty Thrifty literally was something I literally kind of stumbled into, kind of like how I got into dentistry. I just kind of got stumbled into it. I was working with a coach, and it was about just kind of making the culture of my practice better. I'm the type of person I want to get better all the time. That's like my goal in life is just to level up. And then when we were done, she looked at me. She was like, "Hey, what's next?" I'm like, "What do you mean what's next? I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, grow the practice, and hopefully just retire and drink pina coladas on the beach one day, right?" And she was like, "I just feel like you have so much more potential. I feel like you have so much more potential to do some good in this industry, and I think you really should look at it." And really, that was a seed was planted in my head. a seed was planted in my head that, you know what, instead of just affecting everyone in the four walls of my practice, everyone being my team and my patients, I want to expand that and really impact people within the confines of the dental industry. And that's really how Nifty Thrifty Dentist started. Started with someone just kind of, I'm blessed enough that people just saw more in me than I saw in myself. My sister being one of them, my coach being another, and I'm lucky enough to that I run into people who see those things. And for those who are listening to this right now, and they're like, "Well, no one's ever said anything to me like about doing something more." I tell you then that maybe you're in the wrong room, maybe you're surrounded by the wrong people, maybe you're surrounded by people who just kind of see the worst and kind of want to keep you at their level, or maybe they're trying to keep you safe because they're scared of you hurting yourself by failing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the path for you. And it's okay that people care about you and they don't want you to take risks because they don't want you to get hurt. But that's their insecurities. They're just putting it on you. So for those who are listening, if people are not saying like you should do more, maybe you're in the wrong room. Maybe you need to be surrounded by a different set of people. And I was just blessed enough that those people were already in my life.
That's amazing. Seriously, like that's like the vision I see is that I look to the left and I look to the right of me and I see so many people, good friends of mine, individuals like yourself, Glenn, that are advancing dentistry. And yet at the same exact time, when I look to the left and the right, I see vacancies
Yeah.
where people are not owning that that space that only they can occupy. They're not owning that unique light that only they can shine when they just step into that alignment of this is who I am. These are my giftings. These are my strengths. These are the problems I see. And I always tell people to go back to the pain because it's like so many times it's when we realize, man, something's not happening here, or this is frustrating, or why is it like that? That all of a sudden we realize we have the chance to bring a solution, to bring value. And I love what you just said about the people you hang out with, because sometimes all people need um, is just permission, like permission to dream and permission to actually take that first step. And almost everyone I've talked to, Glenn, nobody was like, you know what, I had this perfect plan, and this is exactly how I saw all of it ending up. They were like, you know what, something presented itself, and I saw the obvious next step. And even amidst uncertainty and questions and imposter syndrome, I simply took that step.
Yeah.
So okay, so she gives you permission. She says, "Why not something else?"
Yeah.
What happened after that?
Yeah, so literally, I had a Facebook group called Dental Garage Sales, the first group I started. And this is where I got the idea. So I had that dental garage sale, and really it was because my wife, she was like, "You have too many extra like dental products and equipment. You need to get it out of our storage, right?" So literally, I started out of a necessity. And then what happened was people in the group were like, "Well, hey, what's the best place to buy this? And what's the best place to do this?" And they were asking about their practice. And I was like, wait, this is like a buy sell group. It's not really a community. And then I realized there was a need for that. And again, just my natural instinct to connect people together, we started Nifty Thrifty Dentists, bring different vendors on, connect them with the dental professionals coming in there and really sharing their story, me sharing my story about opening a practice in the middle of like the housing crisis, and what I did, just being resourceful. And literally that's why how Nifty Thrifty kind of came about. But what ended up happening is again all about leveling up and impacting more people. Nifty Thrifty just turned into, then we had the podcast, then we did our events. Then I just wanted to reach more people. I started Dental Lifestyles magazine, started speaking, and so again, all these things came from just the core why of I just want to help as many people as possible. I want to be a service of others, and the success, the money, whatever, it's going to come. You lead with value, everything's going to sort itself out. And really, that's really again how I kind of started everything. It really just came from just the need to impact more people, to use my skills, my ability to connect with. Because not every dentist wants to talk to someone with certain vendors or what companies. Maybe they don't know how to approach them. Maybe they just are too busy. But I was able just to do that for my fellow dentists and lead with value. And literally, that's. I mean, as simple as it sounds, that really is it. I mean, I tell people my business is based on relationships. That's really all it is. Oh, you're not doing this, or you're not teaching them a certain technique. No, it's really about relationships. I If you need something, I already know who those people, and I just introduce you, and I connect you guys together. That's literally my business.
But that's also you getting to be in that sandbox
Yeah,
of your gift. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to strive, and it's not even performance for you, right? It's just you can rest in your gift and be like, well, this is just the way I naturally
yeah.
am.
Sean, that
Uh,
is seriously what you just said there. When people are trying to figure out what they should do, that is literally the secret. The secret is this: everyone has like their natural gifts, their natural passions. If you can translate that into like an industry or a way to monetize it, then you'll never work a day in your life. Literally. If you just use your God, like what you're really good at and you're passionate about it, you'll never work another day in your life. Like literally, I'm 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 super busy when I'm at home, when I'm not in the office. I'm working all day, but it doesn't even feel like work. It does not even feel like work, and that is like the secret. One of my mentors told me that, like if you can figure that out, if you can figure out, just using your God given abilities, your skills, it's never going to be like work. So that is something that I just wanted to highlight there. What you were saying is that that's the key. That's the key, is just figuring that out.
okay, so roughly month and year of the garage,
Yeah,
the
dental garage
origination of
sale.
the
Yeah.
yeah. What time frame we talking
So
about
that
here?
was like so that was like 2016, and then Nifty Thrifty Dentist literally started in 2017.
Okay, so between like 6 to 12 months between the first iteration and
Yeah,
then the brand of Nifty Thrifty.
yeah.
Okay. At any point in time, did you ever like feel like, "Oh crap, I don't know either how fast this is going, if I can handle it, or how big this could be," or um did you ever struggle with like, "What if I am not enough?" Like some
Yeah.
sense of imposter syndrome as you're leading this.
I'll tell you what was really difficult about what I did was the fact that it was so public. Like if
Mm.
I tried something and it didn't work, everyone saw it. Like the whole dental community saw it. And I would say that people who could relate to that is like, Anissa Holmes, Elijah Desmond, two good friends of mine. Because a lot of things that Elijah did, like, was out there. Like, hey, I'm going to do a cruise here. And what if no one showed up? Everyone's going to see it. So a lot of things I did. So I would say that was like the hardest part. But for me, I just thought like, well, if something doesn't work, if this doesn't work out, if maybe like after a year people are sick of me, then I learned something and I just move on to the next thing. A lot of times what people don't realize is that your first business or your first idea or your first project might not be what you're known for. And you got to be okay with that, right? If you think about all the most successful entrepreneurs in our lifetime, they failed a whole bunch of times and they hit it on one unique thing. And people are thinking like, well, they just lucked out. They just lucked out into it. No, 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 no. It's not luck. Luck has something to play in it, but each failure leveled them up. And so someone who, and I'm not saying this guy failed a lot, but someone who everyone loves right now is Alex Hormozy, right? What I would tell people when you see Alex Hormozy speak right now, you're like, oh man, this guy's amazing. But I challenge you guys to look at his very early videos when he started Gym Launch. It's like a completely different dude. Like it's like a guy like I would never buy anything from that guy, right? But what you don't realize is that all the obstacles and failures that he had, it forced him to level up. So for me, if Nifty Thrifty Dentist blew up in my face, then I would have learned something. I would have leveled up. And I failed a lot, trust me, trying different things out within that platform. So for me, it was always I always knew that I had no other choice than to keep working and to succeed. Like there was no other choice there. And I think for people, if you tell yourself like if you give yourself an out, then you'll never really know what's possible unless you put some, like some skin in the game, right? Like if you know, like, okay, this I mess up here. Okay, I'm just gonna go back to being dentist. I'm gonna go back to being a hygienist. Well, if you don't put any stakes to it, then it's never gonna mean that much to you.
I mean, that is incredibly profound. So just yeah, a few thoughts. I think it was like 5 years ago I started recording because I wanted to lead and I wanted
Yeah.
to contribute and be a trainer. And I'd look at those videos and I was like, I can't. Like, so here I am. I'm on camera, I'm on video, and I'm comfortable simply because of the reps. I remember my
Yeah.
brother as he was an actor for a while in Hollywood, even. And he came into my studio a few months back because he wanted to start a podcast with a buddy. And I was like, "Well, do you want it to be video?" And he's like, "Well, I guess, sure." And all of a sudden, the second I turn the video on, he's like, "Oh man, this is so awkward." Like, this is my brother who actually, did stuff kind of on some commercials
Yeah.
before. And here he is. He's like, "How are you so comfortable?" And I was like, wow, I somehow impressed my brother that actually had experience in this, but still realized like the second the camera's on and the second the lights are on, sometimes it's like, if you're not used to it, it can be difficult. And yet I wouldn't get to a place where I was willing to do what I'm doing now if I hadn't just put in the reps. And another
Yeah.
thing is, it's like that whole man in the arena saying, um, I think the problem is so many of us have been the critic that is on the sideline that was throwing mud at the person in the arena and was being unfair because, in our own head, we're like, we could do it better.
Yeah.
But we were too cowardice to actually step in the arena. When you're in the arena, you give other people in the arena a lot of grace because you realize, man, Glenn, just the fact that you stepped up. Wow, the fact that you had the courage to wave a flag and say, this is where I'm going, even if it didn't work every time, the fact that you just did it and went for it, like that is so honoring. And I just want to take a moment and actually honor that because dentistry wouldn't be where it's at if you hadn't just said, you know what, let me go for this. If you would have played it safe, like you have shown so many people the road to entrepreneurship, the road to getting to express whatever other passion they might have. Not to mention all the savings you've created through Nifty Thrifty. Um, but man, what would it have been like if you just second guessed yourself and played it safe and just stayed in your practice?
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, first of all, thank you so much for that. Honestly, I always tell people I'm just a normal guy, right? I'm just a normal guy who just, just didn't give up, right? Literally, that's what it is. But one of my favorite stories I like to tell people is that how I met my wife, right? And when I first met her, it wasn't like in the movies where you lock eyes with someone. It was like love at first sight. Like that was not it. Like literally, she gave me like the dirtiest look you can give a person, like the dirtiest look. And I remember like I'm not never going to talk to this person ever again. And it wasn't until like 6 months later at a school function that I looked around. I went there. I got to the function late. And I looked around, and there was no seat available. My friends didn't save me a seat because what do guys do? Guys in their 20s are very selfish. They think about themselves. So they're all talking to their girls, right? Like they didn't even save me a seat. And I look around. The only seat available was next to my wife. And I remember that she gave me a dirty look, and I never wanted to talk to her again. And I was like, you know what? What the heck? I could either just go and just sit by myself somewhere else, or I could just take a chance and just sit with her and her friends. What's the worst that could happen? And she said her friend said the seat wasn't taken. I sat with her, and the rest was history. So if I didn't put myself out there, I wouldn't be married to my soulmate right now, and I wouldn't have two beautiful kids. So that's a lot of times life will continue to show you something, will continue to give you clues, right? Will continue to give you hints because the universe wants you to succeed. I truly believe that the universe wants you to succeed, but the universe is not going to give it to you. They're not going to hand it to you on a silver platter. You're going to have to get it, right? But they will give you hints. They will put people in your life. They will put you in situations, and it's up for you to take advantage of it. And for me, meeting my wife like that and seeing where we are right now is proof that sometimes you have to put yourself out there. Sometimes you have to take a risk because if you don't, then you never know.
Okay, so I need to know because I know you're a super scheduled man. Um, I can start leading the ship to wrap up.
It's
Um,
up to you. I think. Hold on. Oh,
no,
are
I
you
do
gonna
know
edit
because
this
you
out?
might be
Whoops.
like,
um,
there's a good chance you actually have something in
no,
7 minutes.
I have. Well, we can wrap it up right now if you're busy, but I do have 30 minutes.
Okay, no, I just have a few questions
Yeah,
that,
sorry, and
and
I
again,
sometimes I because I have my own podcast, I talk a lot too. So
you no,
cut me off
you've
at
been
any
doing
time.
amazing. No, you've been doing amazing. None of my questions are ever pre-written down. It's just that as I'm talking to you, there's so many things coming up, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I just I want our listeners to get it because
yeah,
like this is amazing.
yeah.
So, first question, um, from where you started to where you are at now, can you identify either a mindset that you had to embrace to get to where you're at, or a mindset that you had to shed because it would have held you back?
Oh man, I'll tell you a big
Or
one.
you could do both.
No, I'll tell you a big one that I had to shed was like the negative self talk. And it wasn't, and I've been like kind of like on a mission of really understanding the human psyche and personality and why we do things, and how our um upbringing and our history and different traumas kind of shape who we are. But for me it was basically telling the voice in my head, that the voice that we all have in our head, that voice, yes, they want to keep you safe, they don't want you to take risks, right? This is coming from someone who likes to take risks, right? But I still have those doubts. I still have that voice saying, hey, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to, hurt yourself like that? Are you sure you want to just, go through that again? And for me, when I started understanding that those voices are just voices and not facts and not commands,
Mm.
that's when really things started to change. Because look, the imposter syndrome is rooted in the fact that they just our brain's whole purpose to keep us safe, to
Yeah,
survive.
self-preservation. Self-preservation, right?
It's to survive. Like that's what's there. Hey, don't poke that bear because you might get bit. don't don't go and don't go and sit next to Susan because you're going to get hurt like you got hurt that other time, right? So those thoughts in our head, they're not facts. And once I just said thoughts were just, hey, just suggestions, like, hey, you might want to think about that, let me think about that, noted, but I'm not going to listen to you, I'm just going to do that. That was like the biggest turning point in my life. Because even though, yes, I had a successful dental practice and all those things, you know, everyone suffers from that imposter syndrome. But imposter syndrome is rooted in our brain trying to keep us safe. And and once you realize those thoughts are just thoughts and not facts, you'll be able to move a lot faster. So that I would say that was probably the biggest one. There's a lot of things I can say, but I would say that was the biggest one.
That is like I feel like I'm getting therapy right now. Um, because the way I always paint the picture is like I dream about um leaving the Shire if I want to go Lord of the Rings
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
I dream about the adventure to Mordor and having to save the world, but yet I'm really content in the Shire.
yeah,
And if given the option, I probably would have just stayed in the Shire. And yet I'm not going to have regret. Like my regret is going to be 100% that I played it safe. Like I know that. So that's the one of the things that I keep trying to like put in front of me everywhere. If I keep listening to the voice of self-preservation and safety, I'm going to have massive regrets because I'm going to always wonder what could have happened if I shined brighter? What could have happened if I embraced more of the unknown and let myself be wild and braved the wilderness despite not knowing if it's
yeah,
safe? Who cares if it's not safe,
yeah,
right? Like I have a community around me. Um, and that's where I think even some dentists struggle is like, I'm already respected. I'm looked at with some sort of admiration in my community. If now I visibly show people that I'm trying something else, what if I fail?
yeah,
And it's like you had to brave that. Elijah, like you said, Anissa. And yet at the same exact time, the reality is most people when they start something, no one's paying attention.
Yeah.
No one even
No
cares.
one cares. Again, and you know, for the dental professionals who are listening right now, I mean, taking that next step could be learning a different procedure, right? Learning a procedure that you were referring to another doctor, and having the doubts like, can I really do that? What if I hurt my patient or whatnot? The thing is if you don't try, then you're missing out. You're missing out the ability of helping a whole different subset of patients, helping your existing patients, right? Making the experience better. I always like to go back to whenever I decide, like, do I really want to do this? I ask myself, like, what would the people who really care about me think? And what I mean by that is this. A lot of times, you know, we see people who are doing amazing things, whether they're athletes or maybe they're performers, and they don't reach their full potential because of self sabotage or something like that. And we look and we say, man, I really wish they really lived up to their potential. Here's the thing about potential: we don't know what our potential is. Like, there's no, like, I get to level 10, I can see level 10 right there. You don't know what it is. So imagine this. Imagine the people who invested in you. Imagine whether you're spiritual or not. Think about God gave you this talent. Wouldn't the best way to honor the people who believed in you, the people who supported you, wouldn't the best way to honor them is to live up to your God-given talents? I
Mm.
think about that all the time. I think about my parents just, working all day long. I think about what it took for my family to come over here to a different country, to a country where maybe they weren't really embraced right away because people were still, it still had wounds from the war, emotional wounds, right? Doing that, what would be the best way to honor them than to really live up to my potential? So I think about that a lot. And for those who are watching right now, think about the sacrifices people made to get you where you were. Wouldn't the best way to honor them is to really live up to your potential? I think about that all the time. And I tell my kids that too. It's like, you may think you have the potential for this, but you probably have a lot more. And the best way to show me that you love me or to honor me is to really try your best. And at the end of the day, I think that's what everyone who's ever supported us wants from us, right? Try your best. But if you don't really put yourself out there, are you really trying your best? No, you're not. So something to think about as well.
That is so countercultural because in our current society, honor and the ideas even like of legacy, like multi-generational legacy, it's like we're so short-sighted now. No one talks about those things. You know, and that's where it's crazy. I know it's a very personal thing when someone decides like, hey, look, I don't want if I'm gonna have a family, but I don't want to have kids. And I'm thinking all throughout history, people made sacrifices so that even like good things got passed on through the bloodline, through the DNA, and literally it ended with you. And now you're saying, nah, I'm just going to stop it. Like, I'm not going to continue to propagate all that everyone before me has poured into to like my genetics, to my DNA. And I know that that's probably a strange way of looking at it. So yours is a lot less strange. So let's just talk about what you
Well,
said, Glenn. It's beautiful.
yeah. Well, and again, whether it's your own family, whether it's your extended family, right? Your nieces and nephews, right? Your cousins or whatnot. Again, no one gets to where they are by themselves. Someone helped everybody. Everyone had a mentor. And for me, again, the best way to honor someone, the best way to show appreciation is to really live up to what your potential is. And the great thing about potential is we really don't know where our potential lies, right? We don't know. We may have the potential to do something in our career and then the potential to do something else. And that's what I love about that concept because it really promotes trying to get better every day. And when I say get better every day, I'm not just talking about being a better business person, better clinician. I'm talking about everything in your life, being a better person, right? Treating people better, growing yourself, whether it's spiritually, whether it's physically or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, you have one life, right? God or whoever you believe in gave you this one life. And it's up to you to really maximize it for the amount of time you have here. And that's how I approach life. And that's what really pushes me to do all these other things, because I tell myself, like, well, what if I can impact this one person if I did this? Because I've been just blessed. The biggest reward is people saying, well, man, um, you really helped open my eyes about this thing, or you really helped me with my practice, or you were just sharing your story, just made me feel like I wasn't alone. That is reward enough, and that's the very reason why I want to keep pushing forward to impact that the next person down the line.
Wow. So are you familiar with Prefontaine?
No, I've heard of it, but I'm not too familiar with it.
Okay, so I was a runner, and he was a runner in the late 60s,
Okay.
early 70s. He actually passed away tragically in a car accident, but he went to the 1972 Olympics. All that to say is he was the face for young emerging Nike with Bowerman, because Bowerman was his coach at
Yeah.
University of Oregon. And he was good enough that he could win a race, most of his races, without giving it his best. And yet, almost every time when he crossed the finish line, he would almost pass out. And people are like, why do you run this way? And out of that came like this saying that's on my wall right there. And it's to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift.
Wow.
And it just I feel like it's exactly kind of it echoes what you're saying. Aside from the fact that yes, everyone's pouring into you, everyone's believing in you. Just the other day, I gave my kids I gave them each $240 play money. I have 5 kids, just so they could have $10 for every hour that they're alive during a day, right? Um, and they're like, "Dad, I don't get it. What's this money for?" And I'm like, "Well, time is money, and every hour that goes by, you just need to pay $10 for that hour of your life." And they're like, "Well, I don't get it because like this, I didn't earn this money." And I'm like, "Well, guess what? Your mom and I right now are actually investing in you, in your potential. So it's almost like we're spending a certain amount of money every single day for you, but you get to choose how you invest your time because time is money. So you could play, or you could read a book. You could practice piano, which is like investing in the future, or you can just mess around and check out. Um, but really, everybody has invested into someone else for them to be where they're at. And I love what you're saying. It's almost like incumbent on you to shine as bright as you can, simply to make their investment even more worthwhile, right? Like it just honors everyone that
Yeah.
believed in you. So my question for you, Glenn, is what's next?
Well, gosh, I have a lot of projects lined up, but what I'm really excited about right now is I became a partner. So I published 2 books, and the publishing house that published my books, there was an opportunity to invest in them and to become a partner. And I was like, I jumped at it because I was like, you know what? I want to give people the ability to really get their voice out there, and again, just really just impact more people. So I'm really excited about that. So what's next is I want to get more dental professionals. I want more people in our industry to share their story, whether it's on my podcast or in my magazine or now in a book to share with somebody. I want to be the vehicle that helps them get their word out. So that's the next big thing. I mean, there's always other things as well. Working with other entrepreneurs, um, helping them get closer to their dream. Somehow. That's kind of like the next thing, and I'll see where the relationships take me.
Glenn, that is amazing. Okay, so I have a book in me. Um, it's dental. That means I should probably
Let's
speak to you
talk.
because
Let's talk because I
okay.
can help you. I can help you. In fact, I'm helping a few people. And a lot of times when people say, "Okay, I have an idea for a book, but I got to sit down and I got to write it and I got to do all these things," there's so many different ways to fast track that you really just need to talk, right? So again, love to hear about that. It would be like my honor to help you get that book published in people's hands, and in my hand too. Like I'm excited to get it as well. So definitely can help you out, and of course, anyone's listening and has aspirations of sharing, right? And sharing a book, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you.
Okay, so there's so many things you're doing. Any of our listeners are probably like, okay, how do I join what he's doing?
Yeah.
How do I find out about? So where do you want their eyeballs to go right now?
Easiest way. easiest way to get a hold of me is find me on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. You can do Instagram as well. Glenn Vo. I mean, I don't. There's not that many Glenn Vos. Glenn with two N's, right? I think there's one. There's another Glenn Vo out there with one N, but two N's. Glenn with two N's. Reach out to me. Shoot me a message. I'll see where I can be of service, and of course, you can join the community, Nifty Thrifty Dentists. It's not all about saving money. It's not all about deals. It's all about community. And sometimes, we share what's going on, our fears, our struggles, our wins. We love to hear about those things. So join the community, say hello, and then of course you can always reach out to me.
Okay, so here's the final question. You're walking down the street, and off in the distance you see 18-year-old Glenn,
Yeah.
and you only have a brief moment to communicate a sentiment to him. What do you share?
I go up to him and I just say, hey, you know what? Everybody who's been in your life, even if they cause you a lot of pain or harm, they were there for a purpose. They were there to help you grow better. So don't hold any of those grudges. Don't hold any negative feelings there. Just understand that no matter the interaction, it was there to help you become a better person. That's what I would tell him. Because I would say that for a long period of my life, when I had some mishaps or things happen to me, I would just get down on myself, like, why me? Why did this happen? Or why did that person do that? And I held on to a lot of negativity. And I would tell you, the negativity, the more you hold on to negativity in your life, it shuts out, it takes up the place of positivity. So the more negative, the more anger or whatever is in your heart, it takes up that space, that space in your heart for positivity, right? So the more that you get rid of all that bad stuff, it opens your heart up for more positive influences and feelings. So that's what I would tell him.
Okay, so Glenn, I met you back in April of 21, and we didn't talk a ton at that Smiles at Sea. A little bit of a business,
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
and I've known about you, but I have to say, like, I've just been blown away getting to actually find out who Glenn Vo is. And it's been so easy to honor you as a pioneer and an innovator, but I'm also so shocked by the level of humility you have, um, the crazy generosity of spirit that you have, that you just want to pour out. And that's all you've been doing on this podcast. And that's why I'm so thankful I've had this time, because you just continue to pour out like gold nugget after gold nugget of mindsets and really gifts to our listeners so that they can level up. Seriously, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for, having me on. Again, I've been following you for quite some time since that initial meeting, and I just love the content you're putting out, and I just love the enthusiasm that you have. And that's the thing. Like for me, it's like, you know, that type of like, abundance mindset. It attracts me. So again, when you said that, you gave me the offer to jump on the podcast, absolutely, I was going to be a part of it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow so you never miss an episode. To learn more about what's going on in dentistry, check out innovationindentistry.com.